What's up, guys? It's Tochi once again, and we are here in Tochi's Graphic Academy. In this tutorial, I'm trying my best to take you through the various professional ways of forming backgrounds. Okay, so without wasting my time, we move straight into the video. Okay, so as a graphic designer, you should know that you begin every work from a background. Now, forming backgrounds are through, I tabled here 9 ways that you can create backgrounds professionally. The first one is to form backgrounds with a single color. And the next one is to form backgrounds with a gradient color. So let's see something here. Let me check my gallery. You can see a background formed using a gradient color. Now you can access the video I did on color blending. That one will guide you on how to blend colors neatly and form a background of this sort. Now with this also a monochromely formed background color. This is also nice. Now this is a single color. Now all these can be done by watching the video. Okay, now let's move on to the third concept of forming backgrounds. Now the next one is using a single color or a gradient color and then blending a texture over it. So let's see in this concept. Now you can see that it is a white background, but a texture has been blended over it. Now texture signifies smoothness or roughness. So you can see from here that a rough surface texture has been blended over it. Let's check this one too. You can see that the background is having a rough texture behind it, like something like a sand look. You can see it right behind the image. So let's try how we do that. So the first thing is to go straight into our PixelLab, and that's how the homepage opens. So the first thing is to clear the text here. What do we do? The first is to add your background color. So the background, I've told you, should be from the image you are using. So as a graphic designer, you should know the kind of work you are doing, the kind of images you are dealing with. Then you tap the color from the image. So once you have decided on that, you come to your background button, then you choose the color. Tap on color here and choose. So if it is a single color you want to choose, you tap on single color, then you choose the color you want. And so for instance, maybe I want a yellow color. Choose a yellow color here. Let me choose this. Then the next thing is to bring in the texture. Bring in the texture. Now you can do that by tapping on this button here. Then you go to from gallery. That is when you have already downloaded the texture. So let's say you don't know how to get the texture. Let's go home and then I'll guide you through that. I have numerous texture at my gallery here. I have textures here. Good. So you can just search for the texture. For instance, if it is a wooden texture you want, if it is a rough texture you want, if it's a metallic texture you want, if it is a golden texture you want, if it's a silver texture you want, if it is a grass texture you want, if it's a block texture you want, if it's gravel texture you want, you can just download anything and then use it. You just go to your image search or Google, tap on the search, then you search maybe wooden texture HD. Good. Now you search that and your results will appear. Now once your results come this way, you decide which one to download. So let's say, let me choose this one. Once it downloads, once it opens, make sure it is not having any watermark. Okay, that's good. So you just zoom in it to check whether it has a watermark. If there is no watermark, then it is good for use. Let's download this one. Once it is downloaded, it shows in your gallery. So you just continue the work from here. Now, as a graphic designer, it is not after you have gone into your workspace that you look for your materials. Get your elements needed ready before you come into your workspace. Okay, so let's add it. Go to gallery. Now you trace from your gallery and then identify that is a wooden texture here. So you tap on it. Then you set the crop size. So this is a square size. Tap on the check mark. Then you can see you stretch it to cover the space. Now let me use this means to teach you something. Now to stretch it over the screen perfectly, you can have it selected. Then you go to since it is a shape, you go to the shape button. It was firstly on the background, but so you switch to the shape button. Then you go to relative size. Take note, relative size. Then you stretch it to 100. Make sure the width is 100 and the height is 100. Now it has been stretched to a square size, a full square size. So you tap on the check mark. Then you bring it to the right center. So relative position. So you fix it at the center. That is tapping on this and then tapping on that. Now it's at the center. You tap on check mark. Now you are going to treat its blending. You want to blend it over the surface. Now the key tool we are going to use here is the opacity technique. Take note because we will be employing it. Whenever you want to blend an image over a screen, I said you use opacity. Opacity. Now I told you opacity reduces its exposure. And so once it is selected like this, make sure you don't touch it. If you don't want to be disturbed, you after putting it in the right center, fix it, like lock it. So let's put it at the center here. Then we lock it. How do you lock it? Tap on the layers, then you tap on lock. So once it is locked, if you touch it again, it is unselected. Take note. Once you lock something, it means you don't want to affect it again. So once you touch here, it is not affecting because you have locked it. Take note. So it is not selected again. So if you want to select it after locking, you tap on the layer option and then you tap on it like this. Once you tap on it, you see that the white layer comes around it, meaning it is selected. So you can treat it. Go to opacity here. Then you blend it. As you reduce it, it is blending with the screen. You understand? So if the yellow is not a color you want, you can now go to the background color and then tune the yellow to fit the background. Okay, so you tap on the check mark. If this is the way you want it, you can now start a design from this. So it can be a wooden texture, it can be a rough texture like the one I had in my image, it can be a concrete wall texture, it can be a metallic texture. That is dependent on you, the designer. Now we move straight into the next way of forming background. It is forming background by using shapes to form patterns. Let's look at something here. Forming backgrounds by using shape to form patterns. Using shape to create patterns. So looking at this one. Now looking at the background, we can see that there are shapes that are repeated to form some diagonal strokes of lines here. Then it is repeated here to create some sense of pattern. That is also another way of forming background. Now in this one too, I repeated circles to look as if there were balls flying around. That one too is repetition of the shapes to form patterns. Okay, so let me see whether I have other ones around there. Okay, so that is simply how you want to do it. So let's move in and form it. Now if you have a work and you want to restart a new one, this is how to do it. This is a work. If you want to restart a new one, you tap on the home page here, then you tap on default, home page, then default, then you tap on OK. Now it gives you the chance to start a new work. Now let's clear it off like this. How do we begin? I've told you, you start from the background color. So let's pick a background color. So let's go to background color. Then we pick, for instance, white. Let me start with white. And tap on it. Now the next thing is we want shapes to form patterns. We want shapes to form patterns. So let me teach you the detailed technique you can use to form shapes. Come to the shape button here. Tap on shapes. Now when you come to the shape button. I explained that when you tap here, the kind of shape can be selected from here. So we are using a square. Now we can use this button to treat the nature we expect from the square. Once you hold here means you are moving it. Take note. Now let me give it a color. To give it a color, you come down here to the first part you see for color. Now you choose a color for it. Good. Now once you choose a color for it, now this opacity can reduce its exposure. You understand? So if for instance you want to form a stroke, you need to close it or reduce the opacity. Then you come down to stroke here. Then you turn on the stroke. I hope you get it. That is how you form a stroke. That is, you want to form a shape, but the shape should only be an outline. You don't want the actual shape to be there. It's only the outline you want. So that's how you do it. You come to the shape settings and you off the opacity and then you increase the stroke. Now, this option is also for the opacity of the stroke, and this for the color of the stroke. Take note. Okay, now let's go back. Let's take off the stroke. I was just using it to teach you how to. So let's bring it in. Now, how do we form our stuff? So we just treat it. What size do we expect of it? So we just squeeze it in a little bit. Then you tap on the check mark. Now you can form this as a pattern. You can place it here. Here is where your skill as a graphic designer comes in. It is just creativity. So which way do you want to create your pattern? Pattern should create some sense of rhythmic tempo with the shapes. So you should create something like this. Now, so you just repeat them. Then you vary their color. So let's say the middle one, I want to make it, I come to color and I want to make it red. Good. I think this is good to go. Now, let me repeat them. I can repeat them and bring them here. But to make the work easier, I can merge the three of them and then move them all together. I believe I get myself clear. But with the skill of merging, let me teach you something here. When you are merging and the images are together with some part hidden, you see there are certain parts outside the workspace. When you merge them like this, it is cut off. Let me guide you with doing it and let you see. Let's go to merge. How do you merge? Tap on the layers. Now, to merge this, you want to select them. How do you select them? Tap on this button here. Then it gives you the chance to select them. Once you select them, you tap on this button to merge. Tap on it. You tap on OK to merge. Once it is merged, now look at something. You see it is cut off. The parts which were inside this hidden part has been cut off. That is how the merge functions. The merge will just deal with the part exposed at the work screen. Take note. And so if you merge something and it cuts off a portion, you just go to the undo, then it reverts them. Once they are reverted, you now carry all the three into the middle. If you want to maintain the way they are presented, what you do is to move them together. I taught you how to do that. Tap on the layer, then you go here. You are moving them together, but you are not merging them. You go to this button, then you go to move. You understand? So this will move them step by step, and this will move them to the right center, relative movement. So you tap here, then you tap there, tap there. Now it comes to the right center. As you can see, all the parts here are present. You see, they are now within the space that we expect them. So now we can merge the three. Good. Now no part has been cleared or cut off. Now we can place it here, and we can duplicate it and have it placed here. And this is creating a pattern. We can start a design at this level. We can either reduce the opacity to tone it with the surface. You understand? Good. That's a way of creating a pattern. You can just turn them in an angle. Then you turn this to at the same angle. Then good to go. If you want the angle to be the same, you can go and check it at the rotatory side. Go here and see the angle. Let's say I'm setting it to maybe 40. Then this one should also be at 40. I think I get myself clear. Good. So you use the rotator to make sure your rotation is exact. Now from here you can just add your image and all that. Now let's go to another form here. Let's hide this one by, you see how to blind them. Then let's go to another shape format. Unselect everything. Then you come to shape. Let's add a circle this time. Now we go to the color we expect of our circle. Just tap on it. Go to the color. Then let's choose a gradient color here. Okay. Let's have this. Okay. Let me make it a little bit. This is okay. Okay. Now you can just place them randomly. I've told you this by just repeating them. So you duplicate, create some sense of. Let me use this to teach something. Once you duplicate an object or a shape, you can see that the edges are now roughing. It is now turning a little bit blur. So how do you solve that issue? It is by two ways. One is by deleting it and bringing it back, or another is by copying it. So you can duplicate it. You see, the new one that comes has a smooth edge, so you can delete the old one. Good. Now, as you can see, now let me use this to teach the previous one. I said you delete it and bring it back. So the ones that we just deleted, let's bring it back. Let's bring that back. You can see that the issue is solved. So there are two ways you can do that. Take note. Now let's reduce this. Let's duplicate it. You vary the size. Place it somewhere here. You can also switch the way the tone is. Now there's also a way you can use to form backgrounds. Okay, so once you are done with this, you can just tone them down. Now these are together. So if you want to tone all of them down, you can just merge them. You can merge them, and together you reduce the opacity to tone with the surface. You understand? Or instead of merging them, you can leave them the way they are. Then you bring in a new shape. Now you make the shape cover the whole surface. Take note of this. So make the shape cover the whole surface, and then you now go to the shape, select it, then reduce the shape's opacity. It's like the shape is covering it. So as the shape opacity is reduced, it will be exposing the objects little by little. And so that's another way of blending it to the background. And so that is that. So you can see how shapes are used to create patterns. Now let's move on. This one can be done with triangular shape. This can be done with your own irregularly created shape. It can be done with stars. It can be done with whatever, any shape at all. Now let's go to simple blending. Simple blending. In this concept, you can see that the background was blended. It's a simple style used here. Now let's move in. How do we create this? Now we are going to employ the aid of PixelLab. We are using PixelLab to form this. Now how do we do? The first thing is, as a graphic designer, you should get your image. Let's say you are doing a design for children, you are doing a design for a church, you are doing a design for a beauty salon. The first thing is to get your image. So let's say I'm doing for a graphic design workspace. And so what I do is I need to go to the PixelLab. Then I go and get the image. The image is a graphic design workspace. I have it here. Good. So you can get the image from here. any of the images at all. You just select it and there it comes. Now to create the blur effect, you go to FX. Take note, go to FX here, then choose blur, tap on blur. You can see what you've created here. Now you can use this to alter the nature of how the blur should be shown. Now you use blur so that your text will be clear enough. Good. So you can blur. Once you increase the fade, it means you are just clearing off the blur. Now there are numerous forms of the blur that you can use. You can have PG blur, you can have focal zoom, you can have the pixelize, you can have all forms of blur. Please take note. Once you get the blur like that, you can just save the work. Then your image is now saved in your gallery. Now once it is saved in your gallery, go to PixArt here, then you have it there. Now once it is here, you can just go to PixArt and then you bring it there for work. Good. So that is another way of forming backgrounds. Let's move on to the last part I would want to end this video with, which is forming a background by fading an image into it. So for instance, you are having a design and then you want to fade an image into it. For instance, this one's, you can see I have a cross behind it. You can see from here I have a crown of thorns behind the background there. You can see there's a man who has raised his hand behind the church flyer here. Good. That is also an image blended into the background. You can see there is a lady here who Alice has been blended with the background, and so that is an image that has been faded in or blended with the background. So simply put, you need to decide on the kind of design you are doing, and so the first thing is to get the image related to that. So for instance, you have the image, so let's go straight into PixelLab. Let's start a new something, then delete this one. You get your background. Now you have to get a random background to just start the whole thing. So let's say white. Now let's bring in the image. I'm rushing through this part because I've thought it. So let's bring in this image. Okay, so it's a church flyer. So you bring in this image, you set it to a square size. It depends on you. Now once you set it perfectly, you just, I've taught you how to do it, so you can do that manually. If this is good for you, you just lock it. And once it is locked, what do you do again? How then do you blend it with the surface? Tap here and make sure it's selected. Once it is selected, you can now go to the shape button here. That is where you can deal with images. So you tap on it, then you go to opacity, then you reduce it right there. You understand? Now, one thing is, I've told you your color, your background color should be deduced from the image. So what you do is, since the background we chose white, we now go to the background button, go to the color, and we tune it with the background by picking it from the back. So you go to plus, go to pick, and you tap it, you pick from any of the parts. So I think this part is okay. We don't want it to be so dark, so this part is okay. You can see it is blending perfectly with it. Now this is a background that you can use for your work. Now in this, guys, I've taught you how to do a church flyer. Let's see what we've done. So this background, then you add your text, your needed materials, and this is what you are going to create. So this is what you can expect. So something like this, and you are good to go. As you can see, that's a simple church flyer I did here. Okay, so let's clear this off. This is not what we are doing. So that's the background. The last part is to create a background. So this one, we faded the image in by using the opacity technique. Now we can also see from this one, we faded the image in, but we use the overlay technique, we shaded a part because the part was going to receive tests. So in the same way, you remember in PixelLab, we had the background being so light, and so we faded this portion to receive test. So how do you do that? It is the same way. Let's bring back its, let's increase its opacity here. We go here, then we select it, sorry. We go to opacity, then we increase it. Now let's bring in the overlay to shade a portion of it. So you bring in the overlay. Overlay, you remember, is in your WhatsApp documents. WhatsApp documents, so you bring it there. Now there you have it. You can just tune it, turn it here. If you want to shade this part, you need to turn so that the dark part goes there. But we want to shade the part low, the lower part, so you can have it covered here. Now, if you want to blend it to become brown, it depends on you, but I think the black is also working perfectly. You can duplicate it if you understand. You tap on the copy to duplicate it. If the nature of shade is not good for you, you can just duplicate it. I think this is too much. I think you're having it okay now. You can just add your text, and that creates a wonderful flyer in the same way. This is also good. And that is not what you're doing now, so let's clear it. Now let me use this to teach one last concept. For instance, you are designing a birthday flyer. Then in its background, since you are dealing with this image, you want to fade in this image in its background. It is also simple. It is just the same concept we did. It is just the opacity technique we are employing here. So you just bring in the image. You just bring in the image you are dealing with. Note that you had already formed your background by tapping from the image. And so let's crop it a little bit so that we can have maximum grip over it. Okay, so you just stretch it to cover the space. Let's change the background to tone with the image. So you go to background, go to color, then you pick, or I think this is good, this is okay, or let's pick from the color of the lady. So this color is okay. Now this is nice. Now let's put it here so that we can have more space for the work. So let's duplicate it. We go to image option here, we copy. Now once it is duplicated, you see it is on the surface, and we want to use it behind the lady. So let's take it back. You can go back here, or let's bring it forward, or you can tap on the layer option. Then since it has a top, you want to switch it to go back. So you hold the buttons here, the 8 buttons here, the dots here, you bring it down, then it switches. Now it's at the back. You can treat it. Let's lock this one so we lock the one at the top. You can see it's at the top. You want to lock it. Now you can operate this by leaving this one. Now you can operate this. Enlarge it in a way to make sure you create some sense of contrast. It is not the same image, the same size, the same that you are repeating, but you are rather increasing it in some way. I think this is okay. So this is a background you are creating, so you need to blend it with the background using the same opacity technique. You just reduce it in, and that is that. I think this is to your own discretion. It's not that I use 10 and so it is always supposed to be 10. No, it's not that. So that is it. You just unlock this one, then you lock the other one on the background. You unlock this one to place it well for your design to start. I think this is good. It's like the surface is, the smoothness is a bit affected. So if it is affected, you just duplicate it. I've taught you how to do that to have it neatly represented here. Good. So this is a birthday concept you can just use. Now I want to close this video here because of the length. and then conclude it with the 7th, 8th, and 9th procedures in creating backgrounds. Alright, so guys, let's catch up in the next video. Bye bye.